Where am I?
You are in the void.
Dark Void is Uncharted with jetpacks and a plot straight out of Ancient Aliens. What could possibly go wrong? When I asked my subscribers what game I should cover next, someone suggested Dark Void. And just seeing the cover art sent me on a nostalgia trip. Not because I played it back in the day, but because I swear I saw this game everywhere on the Xbox 360 marketplace. And hey, Dark Void only costs about $2 on the Xbox Live Marketplace right now. That's pretty much the same cost as a Costco hot dog, so why not give it a shot? I'm Ice Cold Snake, and I have a love for revisiting older games, whether they were generation-defining greats, hidden gems, or tossed straight into the bargain bin. Some left a lasting impact on the industry, others are praised as underrated classics, and even more got slammed by critics and completely forgotten. Today, we're looking at Dark Void, a game that promised jetpacks, high-flying action, and sci-fi adventure, only to be written off and mostly forgotten. But did the reviews really get it right? So let's jump in, play through it, and find out. Were they wrong? If you're enjoying this series, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to stay updated when new videos are released. If you'd like to support the channel, you could become a channel member. Released in January of 2010, Dark Void is a third-person shooter / jetpack flight sim action-adventure hybrid magnet poetry conspiracy theorist anti-war hodgepodge wet paper towel of a game developed by Airtight Games and published by Capcom. Airtight Games was founded in 2004 and was made up of the core team that had created and released the excellent Xbox first-party exclusive Crimson Skies. Dark Void represented Airtight's first full game, with Capcom signing the team to publish the title as part of Capcom's new strategy for expanding their development portfolio with Western developers. This strategy resulted in the release of Dead Rising, Lost Planet, and the Bionic Commando reboot, to name a few. When Dark Void hit store shelves, it garnered pretty poor reviews. There are a number of reasons why it got such a low score, but you'll see for yourself in a moment. The main reason is just that it's all over the place. It has so many different things going on all at once, and none of them are really fleshed out, and some of them are just tacked on and it's just a hot mess. It's a mix of Gears of War, Uncharted, The Rocketeer, and Crimson Skies. All of that with a heavy dose of Ancient Aliens in the story. There's no multiplayer mode to speak of, so the entire proposition rests on the story campaign. It's pretty obvious throughout Dark Void that they were just pulling at trendy ideas and gameplay mechanics and trying to fit them into the game without a clear and cohesive vision. Whether that was a fault of Capcom's deadlines as the publisher or just a lack of focus from Airtight Games, I'm not sure. What is clear is that they ran out of something, whether that was time or money or just creativity in the last stretch of development. The game starts with a prologue mission. It's August 1938, and we get to fly a jetpack immediately. Some enemies show up as we're testing it out, and we get into a dogfight. And as we kill off an enemy ship, we get sent into a cutscene where the guy lands his jetpack, pulls out this massive gun that he must have been hiding in his ass. Then he gets jumped by a giant robot and presumably killed. Now, you may be wondering who this guy is and what his death might mean for the story, and nope, he's a nobody, and this scene is never brought up again. Then it cuts to 1 week later at the Nassau airport, and we meet our main character, a pilot named Will Gray. He's voiced by none other than Nolan North. A woman named Ava approaches, and it turns out that she and Will used to date.
What are you doing here?
What am I doing here? This is my plane.
You're the pilot.
You're the courier. Well, ain't life strange? Anybody ever tell you you're a superstitious son of a bitch?
They head into the Bermuda Triangle. As they fly into the storm, one of the enemy ships from the Prologue flies by, and then the engines cut out. The plane's wing strikes a rock formation, and there's a Wilhelm scream as the other guy on board goes flying. The plane crashes onto the island. Ava and Will survive without a single scratch, and this guy in a gas mask climbs onto the windshield and says that they gotta move quickly before someone comes. Then he's grabbed by something.
Is he okay?
Not really. He's dead.
While While they're searching for a path towards some structure that Ava spotted while they were crashing, the two come across another gas mask guy. He tells them to take cover, and then a robot drops down and snaps his neck. They grab his weapons, which are laughably oversized. Then a boulder falls and separates them. Heading forward, we find our first enemy encounter. And yeah, it's a cover system like Gears of War. You snap to cover, and there's an indicator to tell you how you'll roll or round the cover with a button press. After a few more encounters, including one where we take out a turret and use it to kill a wave of enemies, we come to a spot where we have to drop down, but instead we take cover on it. So this is the other selling point for Dark Void. This vertical cover system is the feature that got Capcom to partner up with Airtight Games. It's a really cool concept. It adds a sense of verticality to the level design, but too bad it never feels like anything more than just a tech demo gimmick. We get to use the vertical cover system in an enemy encounter. You can drop down onto the cover of the enemy and use a melee attack for an instant kill. But here's where the flaws in this vertical cover system come into play. This robot gets past me and ends up taking cover on the ledge above me. Then it jumps and lands right on top of me. It's really hard to get control of your camera when the enemies are behind you, or above you in this case. Afterwards, we cross this bridge, which surprisingly doesn't fall when we cross it. I guess I just expect too much excitement. Then we find a weapons locker. Here we can swap out our weapons and purchase up to 3 upgrades per weapon. This is another of the features that feels really tacked on, but we'll talk more about it later. Ava shouts that they're closing in on her position, and we get to use grenades to take out this group of enemies. Then the pair comes across this village at the base of a massive structure. Will points out the snake-like carvings, and Ava says that they're for the reptilian gods. Will thinks that the fascists are the ones that are trying to use this place to help them win World War II. So the two just walk up to these villagers that are gathered around, and the leader says, in English, that the two outsiders aren't welcome. So they head over and they find this guy named Tavi that guides them very slowly, I might add, to the lab of Nikola Tesla. And I swear, my eyes were ready to roll so fucking hard that they'd fall out of my head. Will looks for parts to fix their plane from the other wreckages of crashed planes on the island. Tesla ends up giving them some jetpacks and says that he needs them to find the sonar boxes at the location that he's marked on the map.
How's this thing work?
What's the sense in telling you something you can discover for yourself? Take a leap.
I don't know, dude. Maybe you shouldn't strap a rocket to someone's back and then tell them to leap without also telling them how to use the one thing that would keep them from splatting on the rocks below. So the jetpack feeds into the core gameplay loop by allowing you to hover and letting you jump to higher ledges for the vertical cover system. While heading up in search of airplane parts, Will and Ava discuss their past relationship and that Ava walked out because Will had commitment issues. Telling the lore and some of the story while the player is in control is something that I actually really like that mini games fail to do. As we approach this structure, we jump into a cutscene, and where is Will's jetpack? Where'd it go? It's always really jarring whenever a game changes the character model between the gameplay and in the cutscenes. Will shoots this robot's head off and a purple slug crawls out. There's a part where we have to drop down and hover to reach this plane. Then we take out the enemies from above. Then you're supposed to drop down this hole, and you're supposed to hit the hover button every now and then. Otherwise, you just die and your body goes ragdolling in midair. But the game never tells you that. There's never a mechanic or anything that says maybe you should hover before you reach a certain drop distance. No, instead, they just let you fall until you die. You learn the hard way. So getting back to this point, I do it right the second time, and this is tedious for no reason whatsoever. As you reach the bottom, you hover over to a wreckage and you find 3 more parts for fixing the plane. Then you discover the wreckage of the USS Cyclops. In the real world, the USS Cyclops was the largest ship in the US Navy. In 1918, it disappeared while returning to Baltimore from Rio de Janeiro. The ship and all 260 crew members were never found. Its disappearance remains a mystery to this day. So Will climbs out to the mast of the ship to find the sonar box, and of course his weight is enough to disturb the entire ship and send the mast breaking and falling off. Will grabs the sonar box, then uses the jetpack to get back to the ship. Some enemies show up and we get into a firefight as we try to escape from the ship, and this is where the vertical cover system shines. It really does help sell the verticality of the environment and add a new dimension to the third-person shooting. As Will and Ava return to the village, they interrupt a ceremony where the villagers are worshiping the robots as gods. Ava straight up kills the robot in front of them, and the priest tells everyone to be calm.
Do not be frightened. Our gods have come to save us, to show us the way to our salvation.
Ava gets snatched and Will gets knocked away. And as Will goes to chase after her to rescue her, the robot ships fly by and destroy the bridge. Then we get into a boss fight against one of these flying robots called Knights. They shoot rockets and have miniguns, but they don't take anything more than hiding behind cover and shooting them while they reload. With it dead, we climb back up to the village, dealing with the enemies in our way. And as we make our way to the village, we head up to the monolith to chase after Ava. Will heads inside and the door closes behind him. Heading through the monolith, we find these reptile things. Then we climb the monolith with some more vertical cover fights, and we reach the top of the monolith.
Go out your shapeshifter, sons of bitches! Nobody listens! You're crazy. Now! Tabby? Try to take me. I don't go so easy.
Then begins another boss encounter with the knight. There's not a lot of cover, so it's pretty easy to get caught in the open, and I die a couple of times. On this next try though, I head off to the sides of the arena to shoot them from cover. Then another knight comes in and we take it out too. When it dies, one of those reptile things from earlier crawls out of it. Once all the enemies are taken care of, Will saves Ava. Ava says that the villagers and Nicola are captured and aboard the Watcher vessels. Oh yeah, the robots are called Watchers. It's never said in the game up until this point. Only a little UI pop-up for the objectives says that they're called Watchers. Then later, while Tavi and Will are fixing the plane, Will throws his wrench at the wall and it ends up hitting an experimental jetpack. Tavi lets Will take the jetpack and Will goes out into the valley, and suddenly it's a whole different game. Up until this point, it's been a fucking snooze fest of linear corridor shootouts, and now that we have the jetpack and we can fly around, this game is fucking incredible. The sad part is that it only takes about an hour of in-game time to reach this point, which leads me to believe that the prologue scene was added at the tail end of development to entice you to play. You know, give you a little taste for free up front, then make you sit through a whole timeshare presentation of a shooter before they let you actually fly the jetpack. Otherwise, I think most people would have just chalked it up as a boring ass shooter and turned the damn game off. So we fly around and destroy the Watchers' communications towers. Then we're tasked with destroying the generators that power the shield. And once the shield generator is exposed, you then run outside and seamlessly transition back to jetpack flight. And this is where the game absolutely shines. It's a blast switching back and forth between flying and ground-based combat, especially because you can do it so seamlessly. It makes the entire world feel much larger. So we fly down to the platform, then we use the vertical cover to hop our way up it. I forgot what button it was to jump here, and instead of hitting the button for hover, I instead turned on the jetpack and smashed straight into a wall. It's kind of awesome that the game lets you do that. This time I decide, what if I just skip the slow vertical cover hopping and just fly straight up into the generator? Well, that was a mistake. Let's try again. Yeah, this was a bad idea. I guess I'll just go back to the vertical cover. So once I reach the top, I smash the controls, then hit the jetpack button to fly out and avoid the blast. These two ships come after me, so we get into a dogfight. And as one's flying close, I notice that it says I can press the B button on it. And when you do that, it very awkwardly forces all the characters into a position for an animation to climb onto the disc. And here's where we have another one of those tacked on game mechanics. By avoiding the gun's fire, you can rip off the panel and hijack the ship, but it's so underbaked that it's laughable. You jump between the 3 spots when it goes to shoot at you, then you jump over to the panel and you hold the B button. Every now and then it will try to flip over and kick you off, and you just have to mash the X button that's listed at the top of the screen in order to maintain your grip. Eventually you rip off the panel and you fight the Watcher pilot. And by fight, I mean you jiggle the joystick back and forth until Will wrestles the gun away and shoots it off. Oh, and this is the only animation for hijacking one of these hubcaps. Flying the disc feels pretty much the same as the jetpack, but not nearly as cool. I'm just gonna go back to the jetpack. Rather than landing on the platform, you can do strafing runs instead. And if you're brave enough, you can just fly straight in. And it's the same thing as last time, except this time when the controls are destroyed, we have to get in from the top instead of from the bottom. And I'm not really sure why I died here, but I think I just forgot to hover in time. The humans down on the surface hijacked one of the transport ships of prisoners, so we can now make our escape. But suddenly a massive robot called an Archon comes out of the hole in the ground and fires a laser at the transport ship. Our job is to destroy the red glowing joints of the Archon. And after a few strafing runs, we take it down. Then we have to fly up to it and do a quick time event minigame. We climb onto its laser and we pull on this metal part. Sometimes it tries to shake us off and we have to mash a button to hold on. And when it tries to fire the laser, we just move the left stick to the side to avoid it. Eventually, Will rips the piece off and throws it right into the Archon's eye to destroy it. The group says that there are some other transports that went down through the hole, and Ava is probably on one of those. So we fly through the hole. And this part's really cool too. There's nothing special here, it's just avoiding the walls and the structure as you fly. There are some mines that need to be shot, but otherwise it's just a chill fly through. It just feels really nice to be flying a jetpack like this. Eventually, we reach a Watcher hangar and look for a way through the door. We end up needing to battle another knight, and once we take it and the other enemies out, the hangar door opens and shows this massive canyon.
What the hell? What is this place?
A bunch of knights drop down and somehow they don't kill Will. He gets sent flying and it fades to black. I haven't mentioned this until now, but between every mission, you get a weapons locker pop-up. And this time I chose to upgrade the default machine gun to max level to unlock the explosive rounds. And I never actually noticed a difference in the way that the gun felt. Also, I don't know if I ever actually found another weapons locker out in the environment in the game. It seems like all of the upgrades happen just between missions. So definitely a baked on system. Then Act 2 starts with a cutscene of these 3 reptile god dudes speaking parcel tongue and saying that Will is in the void and that he's the key to something. And this cutscene, just after the jetpack moments, is the peak of what this game has going for it. At this point is when I was so excited to play out the entire game in one sitting to learn more about who these reptile gods are and what the hell is going on in this game. I mean, just look at the design of these things. The way their lapels are slithering. This is intriguing. This is Atem, a guide. He tells Will that we're in the void. And they said the name. We have to escort Atem somewhere. And this is one of the coolest levels in the game. It's just a blast switching around between the jetpack and shooting from air to being on the ground and shooting the enemies from cover. There are these turrets in your way that you have to flank, and I ended up getting an achievement for flying up and clotheslining this enemy. The one downside on this mission is that it just goes on for way too long. These flying watchers are more difficult to hit than you might think, and you're kind of stuck with bouncing around behind cover and make slow progress moving forward. And visually, you can see the explosive rounds, but it still takes a ton of shots to kill any enemies off. Once we reach the end of the path, Atem radios to the other survivors that they've reached the extraction point. Watcher transports are on the way to the other survivor base, so Atem sends Will to go help them out. So we get to fly around and defend against the Watcher transports. Once they're taken out, we follow Atem into the temple. Atem shows us these carvings depicting the history of the Watchers.
This tells the story of their migration. And here, they came down on fiery chariots when man was animal. They ruled as gods. They brought him light and the fruit of knowledge. They led him from ignorance, and in the great experiment, civilization was born.
And over here?
It says that man forgot his place and set aside his labors. He multiplied, grew unruly. Famine, flood, and pestilence would not control his numbers. The wars of gods and men began. In the end, those who were great among men banded together and cast the Watchers into this place between places, sealing their path of return.
So they're stuck here, just like us.
Yes, only we think they have found a way back.
So, yeah. Cue the crackpot conspiracy theories. Will and Atem ride along a ship to the survivor base in... Wait, is that Jango Fett's ship? Is that Slave 1? Oh, no, wait, sorry. I'm sorry. It's actually called Fire Spray now because pussy-ass Disney has to cleanse any personality from Star Wars. Using the jetpack, we fly up to the objective at the barracks, and inside, Will gets his own bed. Then we get a flashback to Will and Ava in St. Petersburg arguing. Ava packed her bags and left, but before she did, she says,
Will, have you heard of the Adepts?
Who?
Never mind. Take care of yourself, Will. I wish you the best.
Then Will gets woken up by Atem on the radio, and we're sent to respond to a radio beacon that's going off near a Watcher camp. And as we fly to the scouting beacon, we find a Watcher scouting party and get into another dogfight. And it turns out you can actually take control of the Allied planes too, but I didn't really care for theirs. The handling on them just feels way too floaty. It feels like it turns too quickly. It was really just difficult to aim. Once these guys are taken out, they really spice things up by sending more at you. But these ones have shields. And that means nothing more than the fact that they take twice as long to kill. I ended up hijacking one, and like I said, it's the same hijacking animation every single time. After some fancy dodgy dishy dashy moves, the last one gets taken down and Atem calls Will back to the camp.
I have something for you.
It's one of theirs.
Never discount what your adversary has to offer. It is outfitted with an advanced radar and will aid you in the days to come. Always remember who you are, and it will not consume you. The day will come when you must cast it aside.
So you'd think that this new helmet would matter like at fucking all, but it doesn't. All it does is make the radar glow a different color, I think. Maybe it shows more info, but I couldn't tell. There's a Gimli and Legolas moment with Atem and Will as they count their kills and make a bet. We find the prisoners and we make our way out of the ruins.
Let's clear out the Watchers and get them home!
And I really don't understand how Atem killed that watcher by throwing it on its back. That was some backyard wrestling bullshit right there. The crew says that they're going to count the contest between Atem and Will as a draw, so it was all for fucking nothing anyway. Then it jumps ahead to 7 weeks later, and we're on a mission to rescue survivors from a watcher prison. We're tasked with destroying the AA guns so that the transports can reach the landing zone. And once those are taken out, we gotta take out the hubcaps. I ended up trying to hijack this one and playing that really fucking tedious minigame again. Then after a little bit of dogfighting, the transports land at the prison. I make my way to provide cover fire from above, which again is where the game shines the most. Then we push into the prison and we kill off some watchers. But before we can destroy the controls, a knight shows up. With the knight taken care of, we destroy the control panel, which opens up a tunnel that we drop into. Instead of doing the whole hover drop thing, I decided to just go full flight speed down, and I barely avoided smashing headfirst into the ground. Making my way through the tunnel, these reptiles attack. One of them grabs me and the camera starts having a fucking seizure as I try to wiggle the joystick to fight it off. Then I'm just kind of stuck in this room with no way to progress. It turns out that the one that grabbed me got bugged through the wall. And lucky for me, it jumps out through the wall in order to attack me, or else I'd have lost my shit. Then we reach the core of the prison and make our way up to destroy the controls and release the containment for the cells. So we smash the 3 consoles and expose the first generator core. Then we go back down and do the same for the next generator core. This time the cores are moving, so we have to shoot them while hovering. Then we head down and we do it again for the 3rd and final generator core. Then we rewire some control panels to release the prisoners. Apparently rewire means just destroy the fuckers. On our way to the hangar, we find a new weapon, the Magnetar. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be talking about all the different weapons in the game, like the shotgun and the robot weapons, and I don't even fucking know because all I really used was the base machine gun with its explosive rounds. Didn't really need anything else. After dealing with waves of enemies, we find Tavi. Then we're tasked with defending the extraction ships while the prisoners load. A couple of knights show up and we get this really cool moment of needing to use the jetpack to hover while we fight the knights. And once they're taken care of, the transport ships take off and escape. Then we're back at camp and suddenly a hubcap lands at the camp and Ava and Tesla are on it. Why the fuck didn't the survivors shoot the hubcap down before it got to them? Like, why would they have let the watcher land at their base? This makes no fucking sense.
Without Tesla, there would be no Ark.
First a feeble spark, next a flickering flame, then a mighty blaze. Good to see you, my friend.
The camp's position is compromised. They're gathering an attack force.
We are not safe here. Everyone, prepare yourselves. The Ark sails at dawn.
Ava?
Will!
Wait, what? Ava was just to the left of Atem, and she was facing Will. But now she's on the right, and she has to turn to face Will.
Wait, you're just gonna smile? Say hello like nothing happened? Ava, where the hell were you?
Okay, I'm glad he said it because I have no fucking clue either. Before Ava can explain, Tesla calls her to his lab to assist him with something. Then we jump to 6 hours later and the Watchers are attempting to invade the survivor camp. We hop into a biplane and just look at how quickly this thing turns. I hate these biplanes with a passion. I ended up just hopping out and using the jetpack because it's way more badass to fly around with a jetpack. A couple of enemy transport ships show up and drop off some Watchers. Then they try to destroy the Ark's fuel tank, so we defend it. The Ark's engines aren't firing, so Tesla sends Will to find some experimental weapon that's in his workshop. Of course, the experimental weapon is a Tesla coil. So using it, we fire electricity at the engines to get them going. Then we're supposed to head to shoot the jammed docking clamps. Then we fly around to release the Ark, and the Ark takes off to carry the survivors to somewhere. I don't think it's explained. I have watched the footage like 3 times at this point, and I don't think it's ever explained what we're actually doing. But before the Ark can get very far, some Archons show up. So we had to take out the Archons with the same old bullshit of shooting their red joints and then doing the minigame. It turns out there's actually a second QuickTime event animation for taking it down if you grab onto its tail. Running along its back, we reach the hatches that we spin to open, and once they're open, the reptile inside hops out onto us. We shake the joystick to fight it off, and then Will snaps its neck. Then we head down to take out the other 2 Archons, and once they're taken out, the Ark is free to head to the Broken Land. Then we cut to see the Watchers gathering. They say that the war on Earth has begun, and then one shapeshifts into the Prime Minister of France. He then leaves so that the Nazi invasion of France can commence. And yep, we're really going down the whole reptile people inhabit the world leaders conspiracy theory. I fucking love this game. Atem uses the Forest or some shit, and he senses that World War II has begun back on Earth. He explains to Will that Will carries some mark of importance and that the Watchers plan to sow darkness upon the Earth to allow for their full return.
Each with a purpose. When we reach the Broken Land, you will discover yours.
Whoa! What the?
They have found us. We must defend the Ark.
And yeah, I'm just gonna say it. This mission right here is the lowest point of the whole game. It's just a long stretch of dogfighting to protect the Ark. And when I say it was a long stretch, I mean it was 12 minutes of dogfighting while the Ark moves slowly through the canyon. Occasionally, there are some enemy drop ships to shoot down just to spice things up a bit. This mission sucks. So since this mission goes on for so long, while I'm shooting down all the enemy ships and the Ark moves slowly, let's head over to Steam and read some user reviews. It is astounding to me that this game, built around having a jetpack, has worse jetpack controls than Star Wars Bounty Hunter. 7 hours played. The jetpacking was fun, but the rest of the game is okay at best. 6 hours played. Fun but janky game. Basically, The Rocketeer meets Uncharted. 6.5 hours played. Piece of crap, repetitive, difficult to play, stupid story. What a waste. 37 hours played. Eventually, we escort the Ark through the valley when suddenly a Watcher battleship rises out of the clouds. Taking out the battleship involves strafing it and shooting these panels that pop out until a door opens up. When we land on the ship, we take out 2 panels to expose the power core and destroy it. We do this twice, and then we land a direct hit on C3 and sink their battleship. Will and Ava do some, catching up, a little this, a little that. Ava tells Will that there's someone called the Imperator waiting in the Broken Land with a message. She thinks that Nicola is this so-called key and that he has to hear the Imperator's message to deliver them their freedom. Some dude overhears them talking, and then we cut to Nicola making his way to his lab when suddenly...
Sorry, whatever it is, it'll have to wait. Please, I ask you to wait.
Now, you might be thinking that this is doing something that's, interesting. You might even be wondering who this person is that shapeshifted into Nicola or what they plan to do now that they can shapeshift. You might even be wondering, what does it mean that Nicola's dead? Well, I hate to break it to you, but this never comes up again. I mean, sure, everyone on board discovers that Nicola's killed. Too bad. On to the final mission. As the Ark travels through the mist to the Broken Land, a giant monster called the Collector swallows it whole. Inside the belly of the beast, we shoot at the pustules while taking out these annoying-ass flying creatures. Someone clearly got some inspiration from Empire Strikes Back. Eventually, it can't take the pain anymore, and it opens up. Back on the ship, Will and Ava meet up with this chick again. I'd tell you her name, but this is the second time we've seen her, and we've never heard her name. This is also the last time we see her, so I guess it's fine.
What? Did somebody get hurt?
Tesla's dead.
What?
That's not possible.
Killed in cold blood by someone on board.
What the?
And then the Ark comes under attack and the Watchers are on board and sneak attack Will. So like every mission up to this point, before the mission starts, we're able to pick and upgrade our weapons, which makes sense for every other mission because we're starting from the Ark or from one of the survivor camp bases. But this one starts with a first-person view of Will as a prisoner in a cage being carted through a Watcher facility. This is a perfect example of how the game was clearly cobbled together. Again, it's hard to tell if Capcom forced these into the game or if this is just Airtight Games losing their focus on what they were trying to make. As Will makes his way through the facility, we see the Watchers making Axis planes and tanks. The Watchers explain how they've been witnessing the atrocities of men on Earth, and it was unlocking the power of the atom bomb for their people that led to their migration to Earth, and they will not return to a ruined Earth. So they're fueling the war, which is leading scientists toward the atom bomb that will destroy the world. Wait, what? What the fuck are they on about if they're the ones causing the war? Will is immediately saved by another survivor, making this whole sequence entirely pointless. Apparently the revolt started, whatever the hell that means, and Will needs to get to the Imperator. There's a load of fighting through the base to escape. It is monotonous as all hell, and we don't even get to have a jetpack. That alone drops this from mildly boring to a tedious snooze fest, a technique I will now refer to as the way of water. After about 20 minutes of this, we meet up with Atem and Ava at the Ark. It turns out that they've brought the Imperator on board. Will enters this room and finds a child playing chess with some dude, and wouldn't you know it, Will thinks the Imperator is the adult. But no, it was the child all along. The Imperator tells Will that he is the key and that he will climb the tower, face the Dweller, and seal the path of return. And wouldn't you know it, they found his old gear. And this would probably mean something if the gear had any significance to Will, but it's just some random guns and armor. Will doesn't even react or show any emotion at seeing it again. Clearly, Airtight Games wanted to do something in the plot where the player's armor is important, but again, they either ran out of budget or time or most likely creativity. So now that we're fully kitted out, we head out and destroy the Watcher forces that are around the Ark. Ava decides to go full suicide and jumps from a hubcap before she's shot down. Will and Ava are looking out at the tower for the final mission when Ava says quite possibly the most British thing to ever be recorded in a video game.
Back home, in London, there's a park bench near Westminster. After we do this, when we get back, I'll take you there, and together, we'll watch the sunrise over the Thames.
Then we see Tavi in the room with the Watchers as they say that killing the key was supposed to end the revolt. So Tavi was the shapeshifter from earlier. So why was he helping Tesla at the beginning of the game? This game makes no fucking sense. The survivors launch their assault on the tower when suddenly a giant 3-headed robot dragon shows up. Oh, kick fucking ass. So we fly after it, shooting it in the glowing purple fuck me lights that it has on its chest. It then flies away a few times and it lands, but you just stick to it and keep shooting. When it gets low on HP, you get a pop-up for a quick time event. Will flies in close. We spam the X button to keep from getting knocked off. Then Will flies back and shoots it in the eye. We do this 2 times and then Will is sent slamming to the ground. The dragon lands on the platform, so Will picks up the jetpack and chucks that heavy motherfucker like 400 yards in a straight, perfect dime of a pass, and then shoots it to kill off the dragon. Ava shows up now that Will has done all the work, and then out of nowhere, Tavi comes running out and pulls a fucking knife out and hurls that shit right at him. Ava jumps in front of Will and takes the knife right in the back. Will turns and shoots Tavi, who shows he's a lizard person. The portal gate thing starts freaking out, so Will covers Ava and some magical protective shield thing protects them as debris kills Tavi. Ava tells Will that the Imperator whispered in her ear that she's destined to save Will and only the key can pass through the portal or some shit. So they sit at the portal and Will leaves her dying ass in the hellscape as he portals back home. And then 3 months later, Will is sitting on that bitch-ass British park bench looking out over the River Thames. He tosses the ring that he gave to Ava into the river to symbolize something. And then fucking a Tem shows up out of nowhere wearing a pinstripe-ass three-piece suit, and I don't even know what's going on anymore. I thought only the key could pass through the portal. You said that like 3 minutes ago. Did the story writers fall asleep? And then the game just ends. It just fucking ends right there. That's it. It's over. That's it. Nothing else. There's nothing else to know about. The game just fucking ends. So Dark Void lives up to its average review scores. It's a playable game. I can't fucking fault it for that. The flying combat and the feeling of flying around with the jetpack can't be beat, honestly. It's just everything else about the game is just terrible. From the overly techno UI to the pointless weapon upgrade system to the plot lines that go nowhere. The conspiracy theory backed plot about lizard people inhabiting the planet's leaders is kind of refreshing, honestly, in this sense that it's just pure fucking insanity. The vertical cover system was one of the main gimmicks and selling points for Capcom, but kind of blows its load the first time you see it, and they might as well not have been in the game after that. In fact, I don't think we use it after the second act of the game. Nikola Tesla is just kind of there because, you know, hey, dum-dum, you know the name Tesla, so, oh, you're so smart. Then he just ends up in one of those Spider-Man doppelganger meme moments and just dies. The other characters only share 2 lines of dialogue about him dying. Tesla's dead. He was killed in cold blood. That's it. Never say another word about him. Speaking of other characters, Tem is probably the most interesting character in this whole game just because he's so interesting and unexplained. Will and Ava are just run-of-the-mill estranged lovers in a distant land who spend their entire time recounting what happened before they got there. Will being voiced by Nolan North perfectly encapsulates just how bog standard the whole game really is. The 2 primary gameplay loops are the third-person shooting and the dogfighting, and both of them just end up feeling like a chore by the time the credits roll. Levels are this constant grind of shooting the same feedbackless weapons or flying around in circles and shooting at, well, circles. The enemies are pretty cool. I like the robot enemy designs, especially the Archons. But again, after just a short amount of time, you end up in a trance of just killing robots. At least with flying, you can do cool maneuvers. And as a whole, it's the worst kind of game. It's a boring game. I couldn't wait for it to be over. And a really sad part about it is when I went to look back at the footage to write this script, I realized my entire playtime was just over 6 hours total. That came as a shock because I spent about half the game praying for it to get to the fucking point, while at the same time hoping it would end as soon as possible. So with all of that out of the way, we'll give Dark Void a final score of, for 6 hours of pain for only $2, I should have gone with the Costco hot dog. Out of 10. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe for more. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member. As always, I'm Ice Cold Snake. I'll see you next time.
It's worth its weight in gold. Thanks, Gold, for jetpack.com.
Dark Void with the exclusive gold jetpack from GameStop. Go for the gold, baby.